My name is Sheriff Ian Parkinson. I'm joined here obviously by the president of Cal Poly, Jeff Armstrong. I want to begin today, or we're beginning here today, because this is where it all began on the campus of Cal Poly University. On May 25th, 1996, this was the last place that Kristin Smart was seen alive. It has been 24, almost 25 years since Kristin went missing. 24 years without a resolution until today. I'm here this afternoon to announce the arrest of Paul Flores for the murder of Kristin Smart and the arrest of his father, Ruben Flores, as an accessory to the murder. I want to start just with a little timeline for those who may not follow this completely. So how did we get here? It's been a long process. Kristin Smart was a 19-year-old freshman Cal Poly student in May of 1996. She was last seen on May 25th of 1996 at approximately 2 a.m. near the intersection of Perimeter and Grand Avenue, which is right over my left shoulder, as she walked home from an off-campus party. Kristin was last seen with Paul Flores, also a 19-year-old freshman, that walked her home from the party. Kristin never returned to her dorm room that night and has not been seen or heard from since that time. She was reported missing to the Cal Poly Police Department on May 28, 1996. Cal Poly Police handled the initial investigation into her disappearance with the assistance of investigators from the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney's Office. On June 26, 1996, about a month later, the San Luis Sheriff's Office assumed the lead investigation in the case. We have actively investigated the case since that time. We have received assistance from the FBI, California Department of Justice, numerous other law enforcement agencies throughout the state of California, and actually out of the state of California. I introduced Detective Cole for a reason. About 4 years ago, the Board of Supervisors, and I think the chair of the board, Lynn Compton, is here, granted a request that I had for a unsolved cold case detective. Many of our cold cases are actually assigned to our detectives in addition to their normal caseload, and Kristin's was one of those cases. Kristin's was one of the cases that I targeted for this position, and after granting that position, Detective Cole assumed that position and has been working on Kristin's case since then. Throughout our investigation, Paul Flores has remained a person of significant interest. There's been some discussion of what is a person of interest versus a suspect, and it's really a matter of terminology. When a crime occurs, everybody involved in that area could be a person of interest until they're ruled no longer of interest, either through alibi, through witness, through physical evidence. But Paul remained as a person of interest, and as the case progressed, became a suspect and the prime suspect in the case. So I became sheriff in 2011 and did a complete and requested a complete review of all the physical evidence that had ever been taken in the missing person case. In late 2016, we discovered additional evidence that confirmed that Paul was the suspect in the disappearance. In 2019, we interviewed several witnesses that had not been previously interviewed, and I'll say some of that information came to light through the podcast that many of you are familiar with, that was produced and eventually led to our interviewing that witness. And with the knowledge of the discovered of new evidence, new witnesses, sheriff's detectives secured a court order authorizing the interception and monitoring of Paul Flores' cell phone and text messages. This is one of many things that have been done over the last 10 years. In February of 2020, detectives served search warrants at the home of Paul Flores, as well as his sister, mother, and father, all simultaneously last year. Physical evidence recovered during these searches led to the service of additional search warrant at Paul Flores' residence in April of last year. During the search warrant, detectives recovered evidence related to the murder of Kristin Smart. In March of this year, detectives served another search warrant in Arroyo Grande at the home of Ruben Flores, the father of Paul Flores. Additional evidence related to the Smart investigation was discovered at that time. So as a result of this evidence, a San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge signed 2 arrest warrants and 2 additional search warrants. At approximately 07:30 this morning, today, both were arrested simultaneously with a team down in San Pedro, California, and a team in Arroyo Grande, California, and they arrested Paul Flores and his father, Ruben. Paul was arrested for charge of murder with 0 bail, meaning he is unable to bail, and Ruben Flores was arrested as an accessory to murder with a bail of $250,000. We are still currently in the process of executing those search warrants. Could be there for the remainder of the day or even into tomorrow, depending on what they find. Now, I understand a lot of people want to know what we found in the detail, and that's kind of the question that people continuously ask us and ask me, is what exactly did you find and what exactly do they have that has led to this? Well, I can tell you, unfortunately, the search warrants were sealed, which means I cannot discuss what evidence was found, and probably more importantly is that we have a due process right now, and everybody here is allowed that due process right. That means it has to go to court. There has to be a trial of 12 people and decide his guilt or innocence. So discussing specific items of evidence is just not appropriate at this point. I will say this, and this is probably a question that I will answer at this point, that we have not recovered Kristin. We will continue to focus on finding her remains regardless of any court action. So we will continue the process of finding out where Kristin is. We know that's an important part or important issue with the family. When I took office, one of the first acts that I mentioned was re-examining starting from the beginning, and I often tell people this, that law enforcement solves crimes really 2 ways, through witnesses and physical evidence. When we lack witnesses, we rely on physical evidence. You hear it in the news all the time about physical evidence that has linked somebody to a crime. Well, that's extremely important to solving a crime. In this case, we were dealing with a case that was, at my point of coming in office, about 14 years old, which makes it very difficult. Since that time, I believe there's a list somewhere, I can't see it, probably somewhere over here. Thank you. That is highlighting what I'm just about to tell you. Since I came into office in 2011, we have served over 41 search warrants on this case, done physical searches of 16 different locations, one of which was back on the back hill, you may remember a few years ago, a complete re-examination of every physical item seized, submission of 37 items of evidence from the early days of the case for modern DNA testing, recovery of 193 items of physical evidence, new physical evidence. We've conducted approximately 137 person-to-person interviews, and in addition, completed over excess of 3 terabytes. It's that much involved in this case. It's family numerous times, including this morning. Matter of fact, twice today. I think they're feeling a bit of relief, but as you can imagine, until we return Kristin to them, this is not over, and we have committed to them that we are not going to stop until Kristin has been recovered, no matter what the cost, no matter what the time. We're committed to that. And I know they believe in us. I know they believe that we will find Kristin. So this afternoon, we have turned the case over to the San Luis Obispo District Attorney's Office. The way the process works, the warrants that were signed by the Superior Court allowed for the arrest and booking of Paul and his father, Ruben. Now the case has been handed to the District Attorney for review and their announcement of further proceedings. I'd like to thank my investigators. There was certainly the investigator that I introduced, Detective Cole, but there was Detective Commander that's in the audience, a new Detective Commander, many people over the years that have worked on this case. I think the people that are representing here today, myself, the Chief of Cal Poly Police, weren't part of this investigation, weren't part of this agency that we are all in when this happened. And I think the cooperation that's taken place, I know President Armstrong has really opened the door for us to do and provide us anything that he possibly can, including having this press conference here in Cal Poly today.